Good morning, doctor. Welcome back.
Good morning, Venkatesh. Nice to be back.
Great. So as usual, I'll introduce the topic and then hand over to you. Yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
our topic for today is perfectionism. And the reason it's part of our journey or our discussion on wellness through balance is that perfectionism or an obsession with perfection effectively is a great enemy to our mental well-being and prevents us from being focused on action, which is, as we have discussed in the past, one of the most important things for keeping ourselves in balance. We'll discuss the mechanics of it and also the fact that quite often it prevents us from doing good, which is why the title Enemy of Good. Yeah, over to you, doctor.
Okay. Right. Thank you. Now, when somebody calls you a perfectionist,
Right.
you feel very happy. You feel very elated and proud. And in fact, in general parlance, it is assumed that being a perfectionist is good,
Right.
good for your age and so forth. But it is quite to the contrary, you know.
Right.
And I want to repeat this because in most common parlance, perfectionism is taken as a virtue.
Correct.
And those who are not perfectionists are looked down upon. But as you will see pretty soon, and actually after second thinking or third thinking or whatever, perfectionism is more of a hindrance.
Got it.
As you can see in this picture,
Right.
perfection is a big load to carry with you,
Right.
which you want, which you hate, but
Correct.
you don't show it outside. Yeah. Any comment, Venko?
No, absolutely. And I guess we'll soon discuss the difference between a focus on excellence and a defect
Right.
and a focus on perfectionism. Absolutely.
Right.
This is a load to carry.
Yeah. So next
Can I
slide,
move to
please.
the next slide? Yeah.
Yeah. Now, perfectionism has a mental health issue.
Right.
And saying that somebody calls you a perfectionist should not make you feel elated. In fact, it should make you feel quite nervous and anxious and neurotic, And it actually, in reality, perfectionism is a neurosis.
Right.
Neurosis, what you have some funny, bee in the bonnet, as we say in general parlance.
Right.
You have traits which you don't like, but then you take pride in saying that it is there and so forth.
Correct.
So perfection comes under that.
Got
And yeah, any comment?
No, I think absolutely. And we'll discuss in a moment, I'm sure, the why it is so.
Right. So there is in the Western context at least,
Right.
perfectionism goes with procrastination. Now,
Got
these words may sound like a tongue twister.
Right.
And perfectionism itself is a tongue twister, and procrastination is a further tongue twister.
Correct.
So if somebody called you procrastinator, then you take offense. But if somebody calls you a perfectionist, you take very happy. You feel, haha, I am a great perfectionist. Procrastination is taken negatively and perfection is taken positively in the general parlance.
Correct.
But it is not the case at all, as we will see shortly. And particularly in medical parlance, it is understood that it is not good to be a perfectionist.
Right.
The reasons are many. Perfectionists keep unrealistic high standards for everything.
Got it.
High standards in marriage, high standards in work, high standards, unattainable high standards, which you cannot attain, but you still cling on to that.
Correct.
And then you behave like a neurotic ass.
Correct.
So as it said here, perfection is the mother of procrastination.
Correct.
In the Indian context, it may not be so, or maybe so also. But in the Indian context, the word procrastinator is not used much in the general sense, whereas perfectionist is. And our job as informed, educated people is to distinguish between the two and see how we can improve our behavior from perfectionist to procrastinator and vice versa. Now, to complete the vicious circle, there is a vicious circle here.
Right.
Setting a very high standard, unrealistically high standard, because it cannot be attained at all.
Correct.
And in the beginning, your family and friends and others may feel very nice that it's a good trait to have.
Right.
But then the family pretty soon realizes that procrastination is bad for the family, bad for the society, and nobody knows how to get rid of that. So there is a cycle of perfectionism which you have to overcome. We have to conquer the cycle,
Right.
vicious cycle.
Right.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
Doctor, this is a good time to just maybe actually complete the circle. The unrealistic high standards lead to burnout, is what we are saying.
Right.
And
Right.
then you get into a cycle of self-criticism, try
Right.
even harder to please or to meet those standards, and then once again set unrealistic standards. So
Right.
I think we didn't complete that cycle, but I think this is why it's a cycle. It feeds on itself, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right.
uh, I think is what, in fact, on a humorous note, I didn't notice it earlier, but I just noticed it. There's a spelling
Huh.
mistake in this slide. It says set
Mhm.
unrealistic high standards. And
Oh,
actually,
okay.
I mean, a typo is normally not a good thing, but maybe here it's fortuitous, because now we could stop this video here and
Yeah.
basically say that, look, let's actually dump this and start all over again with a new slide. But maybe it's a better thing to recognize it's a mistake and just carry on. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was intentionally done by whoever created this
No, no,
graphic.
no. As you know, Venko, the whole thing is a PDF. There is
Right.
no editing possible.
Yeah, yeah.
And
No, no, I was
what
making
is
the larger
online?
point. I was making the
Yeah, yeah,
larger point that
yeah, right.
in this context, this is actually a good example of let not the perfect be the enemy of the good. We
Yeah,
can as well continue. Is maybe the reason why this PDF had this to begin with. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And there is no escape from being PDF because otherwise the logistics become very
yeah,
complicated,
yeah,
So I lift it off the internet
yeah.
directly. Yeah.
Moving
Next
on.
slide.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, basically, again, in connection with whatever we have seen, to make it very big and very active and very proactive and very macho kind of a thing, people tend to raise the bar, whether
right,
the bar is for the salary or the bar is for, health or what. People take pride in raising the bar.
right,
Yesterday you are ABCD, today you are EFGH, and tomorrow you are MNOP. You keep on raising the bar.
right,
And that is the basic problem with procrastination and anything negative that is take you in the negative spiral. By the way, in terms of spiral,
right,
you should realize that negative spirals are easy to catch on.
right.
Positive spirals are somehow
Difficult to,
dropped
yeah,
off.
yeah,
Yeah, it dropped off because it doesn't excite you. It doesn't look very mature or whatever.
right.
Or whatever it is. Maybe it is there, but mentally there is a bit of a block. Whereas negative spiral attracts the attention and negatively so.
Right.
Yeah. Next,
Actually, a
please.
doctor, maybe a moment to go back to the previous slide, because I think it's actually at the root of why this is a very destructive phenomenon for action, right? And
Right,
which is
right,
something we keep emphasizing. When you sort of associate yourself with high standards, to your point, it becomes very difficult to dissociate yourself from that image that you have tried to create in the world. And
right.
the result is that even when you know you're going through this negative cycle, you are unable to let go of those standards. That causes you to keep on actually moving the delivery out or procrastinating in a manner that is actually preventing you from acting. So, to your
Right.
point, the more difficult but the correct thing to do would be to say, look, maybe I can drop the standards, right? And actually go back to a more sane standard and achieve it. But
Yeah, yeah.
it's a difficult thing to do, and that's why one remains in this vicious cycle.
Right, right. So basically, excellence and mediocrity are the opposite of each other.
Right,
If mediocre, only mediocrity wins. We say only mediocrity wins, and whether it is in elections, whether it is in examination or what, or in general behavior with the general public, we normally say mediocrity wins. And
right,
by and large, it's true. If you are mediocre, you are part of the herd, and you are part of the sheep, flock of sheep, and then you keep moving.
right,
Whereas if you are excellent, you could get into trouble with the authorities, or maybe you are not able to sustain that excellence and so forth. But by and large, mediocrity and excellence are together, and we have to get the best out of both. You can be excellent, you can be also mediocre, depending on what situation you are in. But that's it's not really germane to our discussion now. Any
I,
next slide?
no,
Cool.
actually, I think if I'm sorry if I may, this is actually a
Yeah,
very
yeah.
central point to our discussion. They
Right.
the notion that mediocrity is bad is actually, or sort of looked down upon, is part of this whole thing about why perfectionism has this view of being a good thing to have. Whereas now,
Right.
I think more recently, there has been a lot of studies and books that actually talk of why mediocre people
Hmm.
succeed. And I think it's
Right.
actually, this is a good place to maybe spend a minute on that and get
Right.
your reactions. My observation has been that people who have not associated themselves mentally or, gotten obsessed with the image of being excellent,
Right.
they quite often just keep moving forward. They
Right.
don't carry the baggage of having to look like Superman or Superwoman to the world. And therefore, they just very realistically decide what to do next, keep doing it, and that actually ends up in their succeeding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Folks who sort of, excellence is different from an obsession with the image of excellence. If you
Right.
get
Right.
obsessed with the image of excellence, it's a prison, because then
Right.
you keep feeling that you let yourself down or let down your image, and you stop. And I think that in some ways is the reason why we end up saying that mediocrity wins, because the mediocre person, or someone who's not obsessed with their image of excellence, tends to just keep moving forward.
Right.
Yeah, does that make sense, doctor?
Yeah, yeah, it does. And by and large, mediocre people are more emotionally intelligent. If
Oh,
you
that's a
put it
very
that
good
way.
point, actually. That's a very good point. Yes, absolutely.
Mediocrity succeeds. Why does it succeed? Because the fellow is more emotionally intelligent. He can
Yeah,
understand his emotions, and therefore he prefers to stay mediocre
right.
and take forward along with the herd or whatever. So
Correct.
this is an interesting point. And if you see Maslow's theory of hierarchy of needs and so forth,
Correct.
you'll see what is what, and you will know that emotionally, if you want to be excellent, you have to be better be mediocre and be with the crowd, like that. But it may sound rather cynical,
No,
but
I,
it
I,
helps.
I, I think it need not be cynical. I think it's a positive thing. See, what happens quite often is, if you don't have something by which you stand out, uh,
Right,
you automatically become a little more aware of how to get the support of people around you. They need
right,
not be mutually exclusive, but quite often, folks who aren't ostensibly excellent, by
right,
necessity, they learn how to be more adaptive to the people around them. And that's a
right.
positive way to look at the emotional intelligence that you develop if you're not
Yeah,
obsessed with excellence, right?
yeah. All the more so in terms of election, as we see, there are elections everywhere, USA and UK and whatnot.
Correct.
And if you want to win an election, you should be mediocre and blend and move,
Right.
like that.
Right.
So next slide, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the good old Voltaire of the French Revolution,
Right.
he's let perfect not be the enemy of good.
Correct.
You'll wonder what is this play of words. So
Right.
it's not a play of words. Yeah. If you are perfect, hmm, then you tend to sort of dismiss the good ones, although they may be good, you tend to dismiss and you just say, okay, get lost kind of a thing. And if you've got a good, for example, let's take an artist. An
Right.
artist is busy painting a portrait or something,
Correct.
and he has almost finished painting the portrait. Then he notices that the nose of the character is a little odd, and the left finger should not be like that and like that. So
Correct.
you can keep on doing that, and even if you have a good picture,
Correct.
it is lost because you want to be perfect,
Correct.
and it's not really going to happen because you can never reach the perfection like that. Any
Correct.
comment, Venkatesh?
No, I think again a very, very good point, and maybe it's the seed of another discussion. Very
Right.
often, good habits require
Yeah.
us to move forward with not perfect, but just good things. So let's say
Yeah.
to the point of your music practice, right? Uh,
Right.
of course, I know that you do an hour and a half of it every day. But let's say you could not do an hour and a half, and you got obsessed that I must either do an hour and a half or not at all. What will happen
Right.
is that you will not be consistent. So
Right.
consistency may mean on some day I'll do 15 minutes if only 15 minutes is possible. And if I
Right.
can't sing a bada khayal, I'll sing a chota khayal. So I
Right.
think that's a good example of how not being obsessed with, an ideal allows you to
Yeah.
keep moving forward and build good habits and good, and there is often quality in quantity, as they say, right? If
Right.
you
Right.
do more paintings and you do more sessions, you learn more, and over a period of time you do better than if you were to say, no, I want to do that one session perfectly. Then you will never
Right.
do enough, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Right.
Very good point, doctor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Thank
next.
you. Right. Now, when it comes to mediocrity or otherwise, there are three elements that one has to pay attention to.
Right.
You have to have the precision element, you've got to have the passion element, and you've got to then move on to perfection.
Correct.
These qualities are interchangeable, sort of the overlapping, and one leads to another in a positive cycle.
Correct.
So the precise person with passion and a commitment to what you're doing, you almost work towards perfection. But as you will see pretty soon, perfection may not be possible even because even God is not perfect, as they say, jokingly say.
Right.
But these are the ingredients of a good, successful person:
Right.
precision, passion, and perfection.
Correct.
Yeah. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
Are we okay with time?
I think we are fine. For now, we are fine. Yeah, please go ahead.
Now, often the example of the Colosseum in Rome is given. So such a beautiful structure,
Right.
how could it have done? And it is geometrically perfect and impressionably perfect.
Right.
And they say, well, Rome was not built in a day. Then you stop at that. But then you have to realize that the people of Rome worked on it every day. So don't only by not built in a day, go by the totality of the inputs and the commitment that you have. So Rome may not have been built in a day, but it was worked on every single day. Yeah. Any comment, Vinku?
No, absolutely perfect, doctor. And I think this is a very good example of what we just discussed a few moments ago. That instead of all or nothing, just keep at it. Consistency is more important than, in that sense, perfection. And sooner or later, it all adds up and gives you more benefits than if you had gotten obsessed with the one ideal contribution.
Right. And Karma Yoga gets into the act pretty soon.
Exactly.
Well, as I say, perfectionism is the most paralyzing form. Paralyzing means you are looking at perfection, like the painting.
Correct.
You want to paint the portrait perfectly, and you are not moving an inch ahead. You get stuck on that particular thing. And if you keep doing only that, you paralyze yourself.
Right.
And it is a form of a self-abuse. Self-indulgence is a negative. It is the opposite of narcissism, if you like. So perfectionism is the most paralyzing form. You have to realize that perfectionism freezes you. You're working on it, on the same thing, and your productivity is minimal or lost, like that. Yeah. Next slide, please.
I'll just draw the connection to something you have been saying across all the talks, and is actually the central theme of this one as well. The best thing you can do for your health and balance is to keep moving forward, keep acting.
Right.
Almost the fact that it is dangerous comes from the fact that it is paralyzing. If you're paralyzed, you can't move. If you can't move and can't act, that is actually one of the most dangerous things. So I think it's actually a very powerful statement that if you are paralyzed due to anything, and if perfectionism paralyzes you, then by definition, it is dangerous simply because it prevents you from acting.
Right. True. So as they very drastically put, only a fool pursues perfection. If you say this to somebody, they'll say, what kind of a nonsense are you talking? I know all good people who have been pursuing perfection, and they are not fools. But it's a very dramatic way of putting it. But instead of pursuing on perfection, it is often wise to pursue self-correction. Now, it's the essence of whatever we have been looking at for the last few minutes. It doesn't matter if something is not perfect. In fact, it is good if it is not perfect, etc. So the same thing put forward in a different sense of words, and syntax may be different, but the semantics would be about the same. So if somebody called you a fool because you are pursuing perfection, it's okay, let him call you a fool. But you should know how to move on and then do self-correction. There's a bit of individual philosophy, again, dating back to Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita says the same in different words.
Correct. As we come to the end of this, in fact, we'll touch upon that. Exactly. Yes. Just keep moving, just keep working on improvement, right? Improvement and self-correction is better than an obsession with perfection in the moment.
Quite right. Right, right.
We
So
have discussed this.
perfectionism stalls progress. It's the
Correct.
same thing put in different words.
Correct.
If you want to progress, you better be on with the flow, and then naturally you will progress in some manner or the other.
Correct.
And perfectionism stands in the way of that.
Correct.
So if you're stalling progress, it's not good for you. But perfectionism would do that. So
Correct.
keep off
Correct.
like that. Yeah. Here is an example of a pole vaulter, Russian
Right.
Sergei Bubka.
Correct.
He kept on beating all world records and so forth. When a reporter asked him what keeps him going, and Bubka said, "Well, my today's target is one inch better than yesterday's target, and I keep doing this inch by inch, day by day." He
Correct.
said, "You keep an individual record, but if you keep improving upon whatever you are the previous day,
Correct.
that itself is an excellence of it is a manifestation of excellence.
Actually,
Keep
correct.
improving yourself day by day, inch by inch, mile by mile.
Correct.
So that's an important element to learn from Bupka. And as long as he was alive and active, he practiced only that. And he would
Correct.
show to people that what kind of a pole you have and what you are going to do. So you don't jump and reach for the top rung of
In one shot. Correct.
keep moving forward. Keep steady. Slow and steady wins the race. We say.
Correct.
It doesn't be slow in today's world. Nobody wants to be slow. So, but that is something that Gupta used to practice.
Yes.
And after there were many who kept following that advice,
Right.
and so they won also. The
Yep.
Europeans, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. Next slide, please.
Yes.
So
we have said this in different forms. Correct.
Strive for progress and not for perfection. Next slide, please. Now, there is again another drastic statement here, which people in the general parlance may or may not agree.
Right.
Perfectionism is a disease. Now, we saw how it is a disease. It is a
Correct.
neurosis.
Correct.
It's an obsession. It is in fact obsessive compulsive neurosis or obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD or OCN.
Correct.
And perfection is part of that, and it is a disease.
Correct.
And procrastination is also a disease. Now you are looking at procrastination in the Western sense. I want to repeat this. Procrastination is not dwelt upon that much in Indian parlance, but in the European
But it's
parlance.
relevant. Yeah, but it's relevant even to us. Absolutely.
It was, but people don't really go on to that. Procrastination is kept at the negative level. And people say, okay, I'm not a procrastinator. And so forth. Then he's okay, like that. So what is the answer? The answer is the cure.
Action.
For what? For protectionism and for procrastination.
Right.
So action is the cure. And again, as we just, excuse me, just as Venkatesh said, act, and act. The three-word formula, Bhagavad Gita formula, going back to Bhagavad Gita again. Act, and act
Keep
to
doing
what?
your duty.
Yeah, and act for betterment.
Correct.
Act not for brooding and be on the negative side of action.
Correct.
Be positive and keep acting, which will be the cure for your problem.
Correct.
Next slide, please. So that brings us to a very fundamental question which theologists and theologians have been trying to grapple with.
Correct.
Is God perfect?
Right.
God has created a lot of good things and a lot of bad things also.
Right.
So in that case, God can only be good in parts, like the curate's egg. God cannot be perfect.
Correct.
And if God is not perfect, we also will not be perfect. What the heck,
Right.
But that's not the way. We are looking at not God as an element of criticism, but God is a personification of how we can be as we move towards perfection. So any comment, Uncle?
No, I think it leads perfectly to this shloka from the Bhagavad Gita, which basically is 11:33, where you're basically Krishna, after having said a lot of things, finally tells Arjuna, you rise, whoever has to be slain has already been slain. Right? You are just an instrument. So nimitta matra bhava Savya Sachin is a very interesting thing to my mind. That if you see yourself as an instrument rather than see yourself as the doer, It allows you to be dissociated from the uh, whole person, that I am associated with perfection. I'm just an
Right,
instrument, right? It allows you to
right,
have the healthy view that let me just keep doing whatever is in front of me, do it the best I can. Uh,
right,
I think is one of the best ways to think about, keep moving forward. Your comments,
right.
doctor?
Absolutely. And the one word of Bhagavad Gita's essence, quintessence is tasmat uttishta bhargava.
Exactly. Correct.
Uttishta means he says get up.
Correct.
Yeah, the first is to get out of your slumber, get out of your inertia,
Correct.
and uttishta, stand up.
Correct.
Stand on your feet. That is the action. What is the action? Not doing anything with your thing. Stand up and fight
Ah,
for it. Stand up and work for it.
correct.
So tasmat uttishta kanteya. Hmm?
Correct.
Like, no, that's a thing. Very
Correct.
nice.
Yes. So I think the whole nimitta matram bhava, which is
Yeah,
just be there for,
yeah,
not just there as an instrument, view yourself
right,
in that way, prevents you from getting obsessed with the optics or whatever else of victory or defeat, and allows you to
right,
keep moving forward. Because
right.
this is actually a very liberating way of looking at, excellence and whatever else. And I think the Savyasachin is also interesting, because Savyasachin seems to suggest that Arjuna can be obsessed with victory, and that he is, very dexterous, can do it with either arm, fire an arrow with either arm, but it's like still be an instrument.
Right, 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 right.
Which brings us
No,
to the end of the, sorry, doctor.
yeah, yeah, no. All this will also lead to another phenomenon called destiny. Hmm?
Correct,
Deepak Chopra, you talked about destiny, DNA, destiny, nucleic acid, he said. Perhaps we can have one session on destiny
correct,
some other time.
correct,
But they converge, these things
correct,
converge.
correct,
And glad you picked up that Bhagavad Gita thing, because Bhagavad Gita, I could not do the typing, so I had to rely on PDF, and
correct.
I couldn't do corrections anywhere.
No.
So whatever is there, I lift the shloka as it is and do the best of it verbally, like that.
Yeah, no, that's in fact an example, like I was saying,
Hmm.
our sessions are an example of just letting whatever, let's do as much good as we can. The slides could
Right.
be better, the talk could be better, we
Yeah.
could get paralyzed, but we are doing the best we can under the circumstances, is the way
Right,
we are
right,
seeing our talk as well. Right?
right, right. Now, the good combination of visual and auditory is that we can make do, or we can fill up, we can add value to whatever we can verbally,
Correct.
and let the visual be there, as a cue card.
Yeah.
And that also helps us in flexibility of interaction.
Yeah. So thank
Okay?
you, doctor. I'll summarize in a minute. So today we discussed perfectionism, and basically we discussed two elements of it. That perfectionism is not excellence. Uh,
Right,
Excellence is actually more a focus on self-improvement.
right,
Perfectionism quite often is just a focus on being perfect in every instance. And the result of that is that one gets paralyzed and does not move forward. Uh, that was one important thing that we discussed, that there is a difference between excellence and perfectionism. And the second is that actually, in that sense, it's actually quite often liberating to see oneself as, even mediocre. The reason why quite often mediocrity succeeds is not about mediocrity, but it's about not being obsessed with being perfect every instant. And so, continuously finding a way to move forward and act is what
right,
is the best antidote to, paralysis by being obsessed with perfection. Finally,
right.
we summarize by saying that, karma yoga, as
Yeah,
enjoined in the Bhagavad Gita, especially done
right,
with the view that you are merely an instrument, you are not really the guy shaping outcomes of things, is a good liberating way to just keep moving forward. Yeah.
right, right. Very true, very true. Well said.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you so much. See you
Thank
next time
you.
again.
Thank you very much. See you.
Bye. See you.